Hey everyone, how are you guys doing today? Today we're going to be going over an early December snowstorm possibility. Before we get into it, if you guys could hit that like and subscribe button. I spend a lot of time on these videos, taking some time away from schoolwork, taking away some free time to bring you guys this content, talking about the forecast. Also, if you guys don't follow me on Twitter yet, go follow me at Mike B. Weather. I do a lot of model analysis there, as well as if you guys haven't seen my December forecast, you guys should go check that out. It'll be in the top right as of right now, as well as linked down in the description below. So overall, we're just going to be going over the first week of December pattern. Looks pretty good for some snow opportunities all the way down to the coast. As you can see on the bottom right corner of your screen, we have a snowstorm depicted, and on the top right, we have a good pattern for some low pressures moving through with some cold air. So let's get right into it. Now, the first thing I want to talk about was the AO and the NAO forecast. These are just two domains of pressure in specific regions. The AO is around Canada and the NAO is around Greenland. So the AO is important for bringing cold into the eastern United States. This stands for Arctic Oscillation. Now, when the Arctic Oscillation is below zero, below this line, usually we could see colder periods in the United States. And looking at the end of November, this is end of November right now, into the beginning of December, most of the models are negative. So that's good for some cold opportunities. Same thing with the NAO. An NAO that's negative in these regions below this line here will naturally lock in that cold air and provide blocking for some snowstorms. So it definitely leads to strengthening storms off the East Coast. And as we can see, it's a little blurry, but this is December 1st, and we have most models are predicting a negative NAO. This is just basically a high pressure over Greenland, which is it stands for North Atlantic Oscillation. So these are the first things that I really like about the beginning of December period. Next, we're going to be taking a look at the Madden-Julian oscillation, the MJO. Overall, this is just basically a measure of convection in and around the Australia region. The convection definitely will alter the weather in our neck of the woods in the North Atlantic by making kinks in the jet stream depending on the convection and the upward motion around Australia. Now, there are cold phases to the MJO and warm phases. As we could see, this is the GFS forecast and the European forecast. We could see that most models agree on bringing this through region 2, which is a cold phase, but then they start to differ. The GFS wants to send this into this big circle with no convection, and the European brings it into the circle but slightly back and then around into region 2, which is a cold phase. So that's something we're definitely going to have to watch. Overall, both of these models have their good and their bad times forecasting the MJO. It's a very hard oscillation to forecast, but overall that's what the MJO is and how it could affect our weather. So it's something we're definitely going to have to keep an eye on. But seeing the European swing back around to regions 1 and 2 is a good sign. We'll see if the GFS comes around with that idea. And just to quickly go over, this is the phase 2 and phase 1. So as you could see, these are temperature anomalies, and you could see generally in the east they are colder than average. Now going on to specific models, this is the European ensembles. Once again, ensembles are a collection of a bunch of like children models compared to the one overall OP run of the actual European model. So I like ensembles in the long range. They give a good mean of what is expected to happen. Now, as you could see, we have a big ridge over Alaska, which in turn leads to a big trough over the northeastern United States. Very conductive for some cold, some possible snow chances, especially now that we're getting into December. Definitely much better chances for some cold and some snow as the pattern is really changing. We're really flipping towards winter. Before in November, these past few weeks, a lot of areas, southern New England, have missed out on a lot of the snow opportunity, but that's because it's November. So as we get further into January, we're going to have a better shot for those areas to get some snow. I also like how the NAO region is mostly negative. We'll see if this high pressure in the top right, if this high pressure in the top right can retrograde a little bit, which just means move backwards into Greenland, that'll give us an even better setup. But overall, not a bad pattern for the beginning of December on this model. Now, as for the next model, these are the Canadian ensembles. I really like them in the long range. They usually do a pretty good job. Sometimes they could over amplify the cold, but generally it stays pretty much neutral. As we could see, another big ridge over Alaska and now the east. One big difference is there's not negative height anomalies over the eastern Pacific, so that's really good as compared to if we go back to the European. If we go back to the European, here we go. You see these negative height anomalies, we really don't want that. We want this ridge to extend a little further east and really encompass the western part of the United States to really get more cold and more snow chances for the eastern United States. Now going back to the Canadian, a lot of the overall same pattern as the European. Trough in the east, we have a negative NAO. We want this high to retrograde back, so that's definitely something we'll be keeping an eye out for. Don't want to spend too much time on it. Overall, this pretty much the same pattern. Now these are the GFS ensembles, pretty similar to the Canadian, but take some notes from the European. So this is a good average between the European and the Canadian. Big ridge again over Alaska and the western part of the United States, holding it a little further east and southeast than the European did. However, it does have this little vortex here over Western California. However, we do have a big trough again, so all the models are really in agreement on a big trough, and this trough will lead to low pressures coming up the coast. Same overall idea also with the negative NAO. We want this high preferably to be a little further west, but this is pretty good where it is. Really liking this pattern, and especially considering all the models are on board, even with this really long lead time of 260 plus hours. Now, these are the European weeklies, pretty much the same as the European ensembles, but they're only run once a week, supposedly a little bit more accurate. So this is the week from December 1st to December 8th. We could see some differences. We do have that ridge over Alaska, but now, since it's further west, we get a big trough over the western US and extending through the east. So we have multiple vortexes. This would likely lead to some warm air coming in for these areas. So definitely a different type of model solution and something that we really need to keep an eye on, especially in the regular ensembles and the operational models. The vortex that was over the Eastern Pacific definitely moved well east on the weeklies. Then again, this is just an average of 7 days, so that could just be averaged out compared to the European operational model, but nevertheless something that we need to keep an eye on. We got to see the evolution of this ridge in the Bay of Alaska and the evolution of the East Coast Trough and of the vortex in the Eastern Pacific. Overall, good look the first week of December. Definitely keep an eye out on the models, especially the ensembles, to hold this pattern. If you guys enjoyed the content, make sure to like and subscribe. It'll really help out a small channel such as myself and will help me keep producing content. If you guys haven't seen my winter forecast, go check that out. It'll be in the top right of the screen as well as in the description below. It'll go over all of winter, and you guys have a great one. I'll be back soon with more content.